Today on Locked On Rockies, a good, not great homestand with the Rockies as they continue to play well against some of the above 500 teams in the league. Plus, Ryan McMahon heads to his first All-Star game.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 8th day of July in the year 2024. Hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. I am Paul Holden, host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind, just like Lux Ace did when he said, I think there should be an episode talking about Jake Cave, like he has been so good, and I think we were all shocked about it. The dude is becoming a Rockies legend, and he goes on for some other stuff, talking more relevant to the episode. But we'll talk a little bit about Jake Cave today for you, Lux Ace, as we'll break down the Rockies homestand, highlighted, of course, by Brenton Doyle being one of the best players in baseball. If he doesn't win National League Player of the Week, then I don't know what he's going to have to do, because he was one of, I believe, 4 players in the century to do something. We'll talk about that and more, all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we dive into all the fun today, want to let you know that today's episode of the Locked On Rockies podcast is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. All right, folks. So the Rockies finish up a pretty solid homestand with a series win against the Kansas City Royals, a team that was above 500. And yes, you look at the finale there, and the Rockies got thumped in the debut of Rockies rookie Tanner Gordon. But there's context here. And Gordon, you know what, had some stuff to be intrigued by. I like that he was hitting the zone. I like that he had 4 strikeouts. He got coursed a little bit because, hey, if you leave pitches that are going to be good enough to be squared up, they're going to travel, especially on those types of days there. So, not something that I think he looks back fondly. And the Rockies, of course, lose 10-1. But this was a week of baseball in which the Rockies were competitive and playing in every single game. And outside of 2 of them, I would say the finale between the Royals and the Rockies there and the Brewers, they were pretty outmatched with that one. When you're shut out in a game, and especially when you struggle like the Rockies have, you're not necessarily in those games. But I mean, if you really think about it and you look at it in that finale against the Brewers, the Rockies did still have 8 hits in that game, and the Rockies in the finale against Kansas City had 6 hits, not as much opportunities. And I think, while there's stuff there where it's, hey, the Rockies, that's 7 games against above 500 teams, and the Rockies come out with wins in let me just double check my math. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 7 games. The Rockies are winners against above 500 teams. To the Brewers, a division leader, and the Royals an interesting wild card team. So it's good to continue to see the Rockies rise up to the occasion of playing good teams. Added context, of course, that it was a homestand. I think that's important, and it's good to see. But there's still context in that in which you look at it. The Rockies over this homestand only scored more than 5 runs one time in the last 7 games. The Rockies in the first game against the Brewers put up an 8 spot. And then it's 3-0, 4-4, 3-1. So we're still kind of seeing these moments and these situations in which the Rockies offense kind of has this. I don't even think 8 runs is necessarily an explosion, but a 5+ run day, a day where the offense seems to be rolling. And then it's followed up with a lot of kind of men, a lot of nothing. The fireworks of a traditional Coors Field series were lacking. But what that also means on the flip side is the pitching was solid for the Rockies throughout this series, more often than not. There were situations, of course, like we said in the finale here against the Royals, it didn't go well, but no other outside of game one and the final game against the Royals, the opposition against the Rockies didn't score more than 5 runs. And if it wasn't for, unfortunately, another bullpen meltdown, the Rockies would be sitting in a situation where they would have won both of these games. But overall, in the big picture of things, the Rockies pitching staff, outside of a blown save in the 9th, keeps you in most of those games, does enough. And especially when you look at what the starters were able to do, from Kyle Freeland and Austin Gomber, of course, against the Royals here. And oh my, you got to be excited by at least the last little bit from Kyle Freeland. I mean, it's a long ways to go, and we don't want to get overly excited, but those are 3 solid starts for Kyle Freeland now. His last 3 games for the Rockies, he's gone at least 6 innings. He's only given up at most 2 earned runs. He had the 5 strikeouts against Kansas City. He had the 3 strikeouts against the White Sox and 4 strikeouts against Washington, putting his team in a position to win all of those ball games. Unfortunately, it's not always the case when that happens, but there are good signs. Good signs continuing from this series, but the concerning trends, the issues with the offense not being as consistent, the bullpen meltdowns, what happens on the 5th day now with the rotation. I mean, it's just one day for the young rookie there in Gordon. Let's give him another opportunity, but you're still kind of navigating that as you're looking for a bona fide 5th starter now, with Dakota Hudson being DFA'd. And if I'm being real with Dakota Hudson, I have a hard time, if he's not claimed and just picked up, I would imagine he's going to elect free agency, similar to other players that we've seen from the Rockies this year, because he was pretty all right on the road. He had a sub-4 ERA on the road. Coors Field was just a problem. So there's got to be a team out there that's interested in his services, but he can't be looking at that and saying, I'm excited to go back to Coors Field. He was abysmal there. So, I mean, there's a lot of intrigue still as things continue to get figured out. But, let's talk a little bit about Jake Cave. Lux Ace wanted to talk about Jake Cave here. He had a solid last week as well, batting .389, an OBP of .389, and a slugging of .556, has the home run, a couple of RBI in that time. Was the walk-off in that time as well? I think it was in this time, or I think it was in the Brewers series, I believe. But it's a good, you can see how different the energy is with the Rockies as well. They're still going through the slog. They're still going through it, but you can just see how much, when this team gets into a good groove, the emotions, everything is uplifted. Man, the pitchers just being, super pumped up and super excited about how things were going and hyping up when they had big moments throughout this homestand was great to see. Jake Cave obviously has provided a spark plug, as multiple people have mentioned, which is great to see. And it is really awesome to have that clubhouse presence and have that guy in there and help it out. I just, the other thing we have to keep in mind when we have the Jake Cave conversation is sustainability, consistency. Is this going to last? And how long are you going to be able to do that? I think really the question is going to rise with the Rockies coming up when we're talking about a player like Jake Cave, is when Chris Bryant eventually, whenever comes back, and with Charlie Blackmon and Jake Cave, how much, and now Michael Toglia having first base, do you have to still make that decision about right field, right? Because in reality, I was going to say, do you need to worry about giving younger players time in right field this year? And the answer to the question is yes, you have to. You have to make sure that you're giving another opportunity to Sean Bouchard, another opportunity to the next young guy up, to Zach Veen, for example, if he comes up. You can't just call up guys and not give them Greg Jones. More guys need to have opportunities to be able to play. So it's the weird thing with Jake Cave, because as much as he's kind of filling a Gerardo Parra type role where energy is crucial, and it's clear that there was some hesitation of Cave when he first came to the Rockies, but he's bought in, and he cares about the teammates, and he cares about the players, and he cares about the guys, and the guys reciprocate that. So he's a key role. And I do think that he, as a guy that can fill in your lineup and as a utility depth player, it's a good move. It's a solid move. But if you see Cave over and over and over and over and over and over and over in the lineup like we have sometimes, it does get in the way of the big picture for the Colorado Rockies. So there's just kind of a few storylines. And I didn't even touch on the biggest one because we got to talk about the biggest one, Brenton Doyle coming up, as well as let's talk a little bit about Ezekiel Tovar's struggles and how I'm not abundantly worried about it because things happen. Of course, we're going to talk Ryan McMahon to the All-Star game as well. All that coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks, man, if you had Brenton Doyle in your PrizePicks lineup the last week, you certainly were happy, I am sure. And you're asking yourself, well, hey, what is PrizePicks? Well, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, like Brenton Doyle hits. You could do Charlie Blackmon hits. You could do all your favorite players hits. You can do pitcher stat categories as well if you want to try it out with the Rockies. You can watch all the winnings roll in and test your fantasy luck. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We are also brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Rockies, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you and for your unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon, and be sure to mention Locked On Rockies at checkout and you'll receive a $250, yes, $250 discount off their services. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. You can also find the Locked On Sports Today podcast, I shouldn't say podcast because it's a 24/7 streaming channel available for you on the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel. All the insight into all of the sports brought to you by all of the Locked On hosts. So go check it out there. You can also find all your Rockies action free and streaming. Well, not free and streaming. Well, it is free and streaming. Your Locked On Rockies action on your favorite streaming services. But SiriusXM's got your Colorado Rockies play-by-play all summer long. Don't miss out on all the fun there. Check it out for yourself. All right, let's talk about, before we talk about Ryan McMahon making his first All-Star game, which is great. I think it makes sense. Smart choice. We need to talk about Brenton Doyle. Listen, and you can sit here and point to a million things with Brenton Doyle. It is something that, is he going to do this forever? No. Is he going to be this good offensively forever? Most likely not. But it's another example of all of the steps in the right direction, all of the steps towards him being the better of the better version of himself, more confident at the ditch, better approach up there, mixed in with the defense that we already know. That is what we need Brenton Doyle to be. We don't need him to be a once in a century player. Let me get the tweet up here for you all so I can properly read as what had happened before the game here. Patrick Lyons, how scorching hot has Rockies Brenton Doyle been? This was before the finale, by the way. 4th player in the 21st century hot at least 11 hits, 8 extra base hits, 9 RBI, 4 walks, and 1 stolen base in a 5-game span. Only Todd Helton, Mike Sweeney, Josh Donaldson have done that. And that was Todd Helton in 2001, Sweeney in 2001, Donaldson in 16. He has exactly the right type of X factor and exactly the right type of profile that makes him someone that can be an interesting Rocky and a key piece going forward. And it starts with the defense. The defense lays the groundwork and the foundation. And again, I don't expect our friend Brenton Doyle here to go on that type of stretch all the time, where he's bats 423 over his last 7 games, an OBP of 500 and a slugging of 103.8, including 11 hits, 4 homers, 9 RBI, 4 walks in that time as well. You zoom it out a little further and you're just like, it's the last 30 games of a 286 average, a 325 OBP, and a slugging of 491 with 20 RBI, 6 home run in that time, 6 stolen bases. When he gets on base, he is a huge threat. He is the type of player that gives the Rockies an immediate threat. He gives the Rockies a threat on defense. He gives them a threat on offense, especially if he gets on base, mixed in with this power. I mean, the fact that he's already got more hits this season than he's had than last season, mixed in with the fact that he's going to hit more home runs or has already hit more home runs this year. Yes, he has 11 home runs in the same amount of in a fraction of the games, goes to show that he has a better understanding and approach of offense at the major league level. He knows what it takes to be a major league offensive player. And again, he might not be the best one when his career ends. He might not be the greatest offensive player going forward, but as long as he is the growth this year gives you enough confidence that he can make the adjustments to elevate his game and elevate himself up to where his offense isn't going to be a detriment. It might not be his strength. It might not be the thing that people always write home about it. But when it shows that he's clearly better on offense than what we thought last year, and he's clearly able to get better, which is something you love to see. And it's another thing when I kind of think about that. And this was brought up on the broadcast today of how Brenton Doyle was scuffling a bit before going in onto the stretch. I'm not worried about watching Ezekiel Tovar go through these struggles. I don't like what I see, of course, especially a bad strikeout in the finale there from Tovar. And I think his first at bat after working a full count, getting the count back, because these bad stretches will happen. But now I am confident, and when I see those two players, I'm confident in them in their abilities to break out of those slumps. And I know their age differences are massive, but their experience time is very similar. So for me, for those two guys who play two very key positions for the Colorado Rockies to show the growth that they have this year, Tovar missing out on the All-Star game, maybe just because of the slump going into it. If he was playing hot going into the All-Star game, there would have been an argument that he's there. Brenton Doyle definitely had some people talking about him being an All-Star over the last week, I'm sure. The point is, when I see these two type of players and when I see Doyle go on this stretch and I see Tovar going through it, at this point in the season, when I'm looking at things to be confident in the Colorado Rockies, those two guys are things I'm confident in. I think Brenton Doyle is a legit ball player. Again, I think there's a lot of stuff when you probably dive into the deep metrics of Brenton Doyle. There's probably still some concerning trends with the offense, but it doesn't need to be this elite. It doesn't need to be once in a century. It just needs to be decent to good. And he's going to be someone that will change the game for the Rockies, especially when you mix in the fact that this guy can hit home runs. I think one of the biggest intriguing parts about Brenton Doyle is the fact that he does have that power hidden within him to be able to put the ball out of the yard. He's got double-digit home runs already. I mean, we haven't hit the halfway point, and he's hit 11. He could hit 20 home runs this year, and that's huge. Mixed in with the fact that he could be stealing. How many stolen bases does he have? He's got 20 stolen bags. I mean, he's thought about 40 stolen bases. If Brenton Doyle finishes as a 20-40 guy, that's huge. That's crazy. And a massive, massive improvement for the Rockies center fielder, who's someone that we have to continue to keep an eye on, because my confidence in him only grows. My confidence in Nolan Jones has been shaken this year, but I think there was another good response, or a good reminder on the broadcast of the fact that he hasn't played a ton in the grand scheme of things of the season, but there's still some trends that I don't like to see. But they're all in all. I'm going to continue to keep my eyes on those guys, because those are the guys to watch. Those are the players to be focused on. And Ryan McMahon as well, because we got to give Ryan McMahon his flowers for making his first All-Star game. And I don't want to take away from the hype from him, because he's been good. Ryan McMahon has been good, and I think as someone, this is a long overdue celebration for him. So let's talk about that coming up in segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel is your number one sportsbook when you are looking to spice up your sports viewing. Maybe you're watching the Rockies, maybe you're watching all the soccer that's going on, and you're like, I want to see what I'm maybe you rode the hot hand of Brenton Doyle. Who knows? Hope you did it all at FanDuel, because they got it all. And I love sports so much, and we got all the sports action going on at FanDuel. FanDuel keeps the sports action going whenever you want, and all you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So maybe you're thinking, maybe I'm going to take the Rockies. Maybe you're feeling confident about the Rockies odds, or maybe you're feeling confident about a Rockies prop. Well, why not check out what the daily boost is available for you at FanDuel.com. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Ryan McMahon has made it to his first All-Star game, the Gold Glove caliber third baseman, and the wonderful. I mean, he's showing some personality a little bit. He's got a good smile. He's got a whole sorts of stuff that you enjoy. He's heading to his first All-Star game. We're going to talk about that here as I once again just thank you for making us your first listen of the day, and remind you to go check out all the Rockies play-by-play action on Sirius XM and the Sirius XM app. Ryan McMahon currently batting .272, .347 this year with an OPS of .801. He's got 14 RBI, 14 home runs, leading to 45 RBI. Certainly not all of the RBIs are responsible for home run. That would be pretty impressive. But when it comes to it, he leads the team in home runs. He leads the team in runs batted in. He leads the team in OBP. He trails behind Ezekiel Tovar by 6 hits, and he trails by Brendan Rodgers in terms of average by about 13 points. But when you're looking at the top of just about everything when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, Ryan McMahon is there. Of course, you're concerned and you don't like the fact that he's already struck out 104 times this year, but you'd be hard to find someone that doesn't contribute as much as Ryan McMahon. Interestingly enough, according to ESPN here, he's got a lower defensive WAR than Ezekiel Tovar, but he's got a fielding percentage of 9.65. Helped turn 21 double plays this year as well. And if you watch that finale there against Kansas City, he made an incredibly slick play. He's a guy that is well deserving. He's someone that plays a solid game of baseball. He is someone that, in the grand scheme of things, yes, there might be some stuff that you'd like to see more of from Ryan McMahon, and you'd like to see, of course, as we preach consistency for Ryan McMahon, but he's currently got a season WAR, according to Baseball Reference, of 2.5. He's got a career WAR of 15. That means he's better than average. He is someone that clearly impacts the Rockies. He's someone that the Rockies really, really enjoy, and he's been a leader for this team as he has continued to fine-tune his craft and continue to be someone that now, when you really think about it in the long term, in the grand scheme of things, after Charlie Blackmon steps aside, he's going to be one of the longest tenured Rockies, as he's now playing with his 8th season for the club. He's been close when it comes to the Gold Gloves. He's been close to a lot of things, and I think this is his opportunity, and I hope he gets an opportunity as well, because he can play defense with the best of them in this game, and he also swings a pretty darn good stick as well. If he can really get into one and connect with the pitch, he can launch one. And I think that while I think that the outside perception for the Rockies when it comes to the All-Star game, people won't agree with this, and I know a lot of the people that are listening to this are Rockies fans, so it probably escape the bubble too much, but it'll be tough for people to admit that the Rockies had arguments for 3 All-Stars. Even amidst the record, you can't sit there and say that Brenton Doyle and Ezequiel Tovar weren't also worthy of this. But this is something that has Ryan McMahon that he's kind of been owed, I think, a little bit. Something I think that establishes a little bit more legitimacy in the career of Ryan McMahon, establishes himself as a little bit more of a name in the league. He's certainly been mentioned and talked about, and people kind of, whisper here and there, and there are always a little bit of murmurs and such about Ryan McMahon in the wider baseball world. But now this is his opportunity, just like Elias Diaz last year. I mean, Elias Diaz is a vet. It was a vet, man. Puts in his time at a tough position and had earned that right to be at the All-Star game with the way that he played last year. And then when he was given his opportunity, one of the in the biggest moment for the Rockies last year, he comes up huge. And it's a reminder that there's good, talented players on the Rockies that deserve to be recognized on the national scale. And again, if you actually followed the Rockies and you actually looked into things, you'd understand that while there are big problems with the Rockies, it isn't some of their positional players. Those 3 guys have a solid argument and have had solid seasons to be reflected upon. And unfortunately, the Rockies will be continued to be overlooked by an oversaturated National League that's full of stars. And that's not anything you can do. But when it's fan vote, when it's the Rockies, in terms of starters and votes and those things, will never get what they deserve. It will always go to the Braves, the Phillies, and the Dodgers, and these names that just have these fan bases that are rabid and do the fan votes and are there. But it's always good when a player like Ryan McMahon gets this opportunity. It's the best thing about the All-Star game is the fact that every team sends a representative. Every team has someone that deserves to be there. Every team has an elite ball player. And I would put Ryan McMahon in the elite category. He's someone that if he could iron out some of the problems with the inconsistencies of his game, like I know we've been talking about that for 8 years, but he's still only 29. He's someone that will impact your team, that does impact the Colorado Rockies. When Ryan McMahon is in a good groove, the Rockies are in a good groove. And if the Rockies hold on to him, that will continue to be true. But if they end up moving him in some sort of deal, which I know they haven't talked about doing, he's going to be a game changer for teams. And above all, too, when you really look at it, he stayed healthy for the vast majority of this time as well. Ryan McMahon, for the Rockies here, has played in let's see here. He has logged at least 100 games since 2018. I mean, 2020, he played in 52 of those games. He played in 91 games in 2018. He's played in 141 in 19, 151 in 2021, 153 in 2022, 152 in 2023. The guy shows up every day, and he has the ability to change the game every single day. So I really do hope that he gets to see the field for the All-Star game. I think he deserves it. I do think and I'm a homer. I'm the Rockies homer, I know. But I do think that he is a top-level third baseman in this league. Just like I think after a little more maturity, Tovar will be an elite shortstop in the game. I do think Brendan Rodgers is up there as well. And I think Brenton Doyle has arguments. There are arguments for greatness on the Rockies. People just, unfortunately, baseball, it's a full team sport, and one great player ain't going to fix things, and those guys don't pitch. So we'll see. But shout outs to Ryan McMahon. Really, really, really good stuff for him. And a good, overall, even with some losses, a couple of frustrating things in there too with the Rockies. Not a bad homestand to watch. We'll see how the Rockies do as they go on the road, something we know that they are not good at doing. They got a matchup here against the Cincinnati Reds, who I'm sure are looking to add some wins here to the win column there. But Cincinnati and New York, a New York Mets team that is playing much better baseball. So that's going to be a road trip, or kind of a tough one for the Rockies. We'll see how they handle it coming up, and we'll be breaking down all the action right here on Locked On Rockies. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We really do appreciate it and all your support. Please check us out. Hey, if you like the audio version, if you like the show, if you leave a review, or if you leave a comment, like the videos on all that good stuff on the YouTube channel, you are really helping us out. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, you can check out Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available here on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.